ending, and I don't think there's any plans underway for the coronation or for a third term. Although if it could be done, he would find a way to do it. And candidates are lining up on both sides of the aisle to take his place. And on the Republican side, there are a number of candidates, and one of those candidates is a man who is very closely associated and affiliated with New York City and has spent his life here, and it's Mr. George McDonald. And George, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's first of all, for the people, and I want to talk about your expertise in jobs and the economy and all, but for the people who are unfamiliar with you across the nation and watching and listening in New York City, tell them why George McDonald should be mayor of New York City.
Well, for the past 25 years, Steve, I've helped people at the bottom of our society, folks who are homeless, have substance abuse issues, coming home from prison, and somehow we've managed to use the American system of getting a job and working rather than the handout very successfully. And what we've done for a few people, I want to do for all people in New York City. And I believe that we can do that. So my platform is full employment. And my record, our record, the Doe Fund, certainly speaks to our ability to do that.
Well, I was going to ask you about the Doe Fund, and that was your vehicle by which you accomplished all these things.
I started feeding homeless people in Grand Central Terminal in 1984, 1985. And every night at 10 o'clock, I did it for 700 nights in a row. And a woman had died of malnutrition. And so I went there really to find out why. Because I couldn't understand in the center of the richest city, in the richest country in the world, how somebody could die from malnutrition. So as I was feeding them, I came to know them. And I listened to what they said. And they said they appreciated the sandwich, but what they really wanted was a room and a job to pay for it. A room and a job to pay for it. I started working in the recycling business when I was 10 years old, collecting bottles on the beach.
Yeah, right? Recycling, but only they didn't call it that then,
no,
right?
No, they didn't. They called it enterprise.
Yes.
And I have worked all my life, and I get fulfillment from work, and I believe that all of us do. That's how our lives are structured. So the marvelous results that we've gotten by offering people a hand up, an opportunity to use this great American system that we have, this great economic system that we have. People can complain about it, but come up with a better one, because you can climb this economic ladder. And we have people doing it every day with multiple barriers to employment.
And you believe, as I do, I'm asking you,
yes, sir.
that given the choice, people would rather have that American dream out there to reach for. People would rather have the opportunity to succeed and to better themselves, as opposed to what seems to be the Barack Obama philosophy of fair, everybody the same, here's your handout, it's got to be fair. And why should somebody have any advantage over anybody else in any regard? You believe people would choose what you and I are talking about,
well,
correct?
I know that they would, because I've given them that chance, and they've grabbed a hold of it. Look, I mean, at some point you could ask me why I became a Republican.
I was going to ask you that,
from being
actually.
a Democrat. And you hit the nail on the head with Obama, because when I listen to a State of the State where he talks about climbing the economic ladder to the middle class, it drives me wild. Because when I was 12 years old, I used to get golf balls out of the
All right, so 10 years was the bottles,
yes.
then 12 the golf balls.
The golf balls, and because I was waiting for my working papers at 14, you see. But I knew I could make money and that I could support myself as a little fellow, right? And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be independent.
Yeah, well,
and that's what human beings want to do. They want to be self-sufficient.
I couldn't
and
agree
they
more.
don't want to go have their sights set on, wow, we're going to make it to the middle class.
Now, you talk about full employment. I mean, does that refer to the 5%, which is generally accepted as can't get better than that?
No, I don't see why we can't get to the 350,000 or so people in New York City that don't have a job work. I think that we should use the economic buying power of the city to further our opportunities to create jobs and to create small businesses.
So economically different from, besides letting us drink soda and letting us use salt and letting us, who knows what else. What economically, what would you do different than Bloomberg has in place now to accomplish that?
Well, I believe in myself in terms of what I'm going to do, and so I have to approach it from the point of view of preserving where we are and improving what any mayor has done before I'm mayor. So that's my viewpoint.
Okay. We're talking to George McDonald. He is running for mayor. Why? So you, if mayor of New York City, on the Republican side. So you, when did you switch to become a Republican? Was it Obama?
No,
I didn't think
wasn't.
So.
It technically, I switched last August.
Okay.
But when Rudy Giuliani was mayor, for example, he modeled his welfare to work program after our Doe Fund Ready, Willing, and Able program. And then Clinton had, personal responsibility and work over welfare. So in those days, the people in the city that don't believe in that as a solution were picketing and came to our facilities and all of that. So it was pretty obvious to me in those days that my philosophy was different than the Democrats in New York City.
All right, no, let's expand national, and we've been talking national to a great extent, and then I'll get back to your thoughts about our current mayor and maybe a couple of the other candidates. But yesterday, today's statistics came out, or a stat came out on first-time unemployment claims, and they were down significantly, back to the '08 levels, whatever. But yesterday we had the employment number from ADP. We're going to get the federal number tomorrow from the Labor Board. It's not going to be good if ADP was any indication. We got home ownership down at lows since the 1990s. I read one story based on a formula, the worst economy since the 80s. It's just everything he's doing, everything that Barack Obama is doing, everything he's pushing, and he's pushing more of it. It's just not working unless working is accomplishing what he's accomplishing, and he wants that. He wants record numbers on food stamps. He wants record people on disability. He wants people dropping out of the labor force, and then the unemployment rate goes down as a result. Do you think that's what he wants? He's not a stupid man. He sees what he's doing isn't working.
Well, I don't know what he wants.
Okay.
I only know what he says
Right.
and what he does. And the fact of the matter is that this commonality is contrary to my core beliefs, and that's what it appears to be to me. Everybody is equal. When you talk about everybody being equal in the city of New York, 10% of the people pay 74% of the tax.
Yeah.
We don't want to drive those folks out.
Yep.
We want them to stay here. And the burden of the bottom, if you will, the people who are on welfare and who do have to live in the homeless shelters and are in prison, have a tremendous cost to society. If we transform them into contributing tax-paying members of society,
Make a big difference.
then our system works.
Yeah.
And that's our system, regardless of who's president at the moment.
All right, so how do you? What are your thoughts on Mike Bloomberg? And I don't know. I don't know where to start. But he's called the nanny mayor. I've called him worse. I just think he's a hypocrite of the first order with regard to many of the things he wouldn't let us do. But saying he never had a vacation in 8 years, but every weekend he flies to God knows where. That to me is a little vacation. The nanniness of Mike Bloomberg. Where do you weigh in on these restrictions and these laws and telling us what to do and how to live, and saying the other day the Constitution needs to be interpreted differently? It just seems like it's the world according to Mike.
Well, I believe in education rather than regulation. So I would try to educate people on these issues.
And tell them sugar's bad. Tell them a big soda's bad. Right.
I will say that the calorie count,
in the restaurants?
It helped me out a great deal.
All right.
It did.
That's fair.
I've lost 40 pounds over the past 5 years, and part of it was understanding what it was that I was eating.
Right.
And how many calories that bacon cheeseburger had. 2,000.
No, that yeah.
So
absolutely.
you don't have it.
It's a shock
see?
when you right.
So
but that's
you don't
your
have it.
choice not to have it.
But yes. Oh, sure.
Yeah. No. What I'm saying is, I mean, the
it's there.
soda he wants to take from you.
I
This he wants to
understand.
take from you. The salt he wants to take from you.
I understand.
Yeah.
I want to do education.
Yeah, no, that's-
obesity is a problem in America,
Sure.
and it's a very costly public health problem. You and I pay for obese people, and a third of
Absolutely.
America is obese.
But then where do you stop? And I'm not saying you're advocating it, but then I'm playing devil's advocate. Where do you stop? Ice cream, donuts, Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, you just could go. You could use that slippery slope that we pay, to mandate everything from motorcycle helmets, smoking, ice cream, fat food, anything. You can make that
Steve,
argument.
I'm
yeah.
with you. I understand.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to imply that you were not with me. Now, let's talk about I guess the front runner on the Democratic side is Christine Quinn. Now, she unfortunately, one thing I do agree with Mayor Bloomberg on, and I would guess that you will too, is that we have the best police force in the country.
I was just talking to 2 police officers on my way over here.
And Ray Kelly, we had him on the other day, does a great job. I've known him for years. And now Christine Quinn, if she's elected, she wants to put this supervisor over Ray Kelly. He'd have to, in effect, answer to this third party, or below the mayor and the police commissioner. And she's against the stop and frisk and the surveillance of Muslim community. When you have something that's working so well in this city when it comes to crime and the lack of terror attacks and thwarted terror attacks, to mess with it, to me, seems strange.
Well, you can only improve it. I mean, that's where we're at. I remember the days when New York City was in anarchy.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter couldn't, we live on 84th Street, my daughter wouldn't be allowed to go to the corner at 9 o'clock at night. People were sitting on my stoop smoking crack.
Oh, yeah, and the squeegee guys, the whole thing.
would be there.
Yeah.
So, the Mayor Bloomberg and Commissioner Kelly have done a tremendous job in public safety.
Right.
Now, the police officers that I've been talking to over the past several days in various places, their morale is being hurt by this. We are the safest city in America, and here, what have we done? We've taken the police force and made it into a political issue in an election year.
Yep.
The worst thing that you can do. And crime is starting to tick back up again. And so I don't believe in an inspector general for the police department or a racial profiling bill. That's going to be the new thing. They have a bill in the city council for racial profiling.
Well, they have the lawsuit also. The court case is ongoing now. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't know that that's going so well for the people that brought the lawsuit. But in any event, they have this racial profiling bill. So what is it going to do? It's going to allow people who think that they have been profiled to sue the city.
Yep.
They have a bill in the city council, and Chris Quinn is the head of the city council. They have a bill in the city council where employers cannot run credit checks on people that they're going to hire. Think about that.
Yeah.
And the city council person who sponsored the bill said, well, employers, this man who has never had a job, never created or run a business, never employed anybody, says employers they have resumes and they can call other people. Okay.
It sometimes it does boggle the mind where these people are coming from on some of these issues. So the toughest thing about running this city, do you think, would be what?
Well, there's no doubt that keeping New Yorkers safe from both terrorism and street crime is the principal role of the mayor. I mean, responsibility of the mayor. But then you have education, and that's an important consideration too. And of course, the economy of New York City.
And where does your campaign go from here? The Republican primary, you got several opponents. Optimism?
Oh, I'm very optimistic because we've been getting now I will have the least amount of money in this race. There's no doubt that the one fellow who's the grocer, he's spending millions of dollars and thinks that he can buy the office, and I suggested he should look at what happened in Connecticut for that. You have to have a message. And
you're referring to McMahon.
Yeah, you have to have the people have to have the confidence in you that you're going to make a good mayor. And then there's another fellow who was the head of the MTA. And people, have run before who were the head of the
Yeah,
MTA.
that's a
tough
spot on the resume to be running on. Yeah.
So I'm sanguine about my chances and my opportunity, and then when I make it through the Republican primary, I have a pathway to victory in November that neither one of my Republican opponents have.
How so?
Well, because with the Doe Fund, I've been working with the minority community for 25 years. My credentials are solid there. They know that I'm just taking the American dream to them.
And would you get prominent minorities leadership type support over a Democratic candidate in the general election?
I'd get individual human beings who would give endorsements and say what this opportunity that they got meant to them.
That's great.
And
Can't beat that.
I have tens of thousands of them.
Can't
And you
beat
know,
that.
they're part of families, and they have brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters. So
Well,
I believe that's my pathway.
Well, it is a pleasure seeing you and talking with you, and we wish you the best of luck. Well, our time is just about up. Yeah, TV is a little different than radio, but even on radio, I'm up against the break. So I thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have you back as the campaign progresses, sir.
Thank you so much.
George McDonald, ladies and gentlemen, running for mayor of New York City, and